our seniors are having to feel. But there's solutions to it. The interesting thing about socialism is that when I was looking at our current budget, 52%, more than half of our budget goes to social welfare programs. And only 15% goes to the military, goes to self-defense. And constantly we hear that all of our money goes to self-defense. Well, that's just not true. We are at the point now that as we continue to increase those social programs, we are actually eating our own economy. And that is why taxation is theft. Because at the end of the day, government didn't earn a single penny that they take from any of our paychecks. They didn't earn a single penny that our entrepreneurs go out and work hard and sacrifice and make sure that they make payroll every single month. But when it comes to the way that they spend money, they spend it in such an irresponsible fashion many times. And we look around and we have a looming homeless crisis happening in Arizona. We have a looming crisis when it comes to being able to take care of families for young people. We have a looming crisis when it comes to student debt. And socialism keeps saying, let's just get more government, that will solve it. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's eating our economy. It's not something that's going to solve anything. And you've heard from the previous speakers that have lived under socialism. It leads to starvation. It essentially is economic slavery. So how do we solve this? How have I fought this? Well, conservatives, what we can do is that we can step up and be the solution to our communities. And I know many of you volunteer and you donate, you serve at homeless shelters, you serve girls that are in crisis pregnancies, but we need to do more of that because every single person's life that we touch, that we solve, it creates charity. Why is charity important over socialism? Well, socialism actually steals charity from us. When you have a transaction that's based on charity, that means the person that is giving the financial support is receiving back appreciation, love, and kindness for the relationship that they just created with that person. When it comes to socialism, it's just government taking your money by force and giving it to people that might be using the system fraudulently. And so it creates a system that ends up having results that don't appear to be very good. And so as we see more homelessness increase in our cities, we say, well, what is government doing about it? Because they've taken so much of our income, there's nothing left to help our neighbors. So I want to tell you a story. There's a girl that was, that I'm going to change her name, let's just call her Kimberly. And I met Kimberly at our Crisis Pregnancy Center. Kimberly had been a victim of child sex trafficking. Her parents literally sold her as a sex slave so that they could make money. And that's what she grew up in. That's the environment she grew up in. She found herself as an adult then being addicted to that lifestyle and not knowing how to get out of it, but she became pregnant. And she didn't want to have an abortion. And so she reached out to her local crisis pregnancy center and said, please help me. And they connected her with a group that was able to help provide housing for her. And that's how I got connected with her, because I was helping these girls learn how to do job interviews, learning how to have a job, learning life skills that they needed to be able to be financially successful so that they didn't have to live off of government once they had their child. Well, because of that, Sarah ended up struggling a little bit. When she had her baby, she didn't know how to handle it, and she did end up running away, and she lost that child to Child Protective Services. And it was a really sad event because I wanted to be able to help her more. But a couple years, and I thought, man, this isn't working. But a couple years later, I get a phone call from her from Texas. And she says, hey, Merissa, I need your help. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, I was raped and now I'm pregnant. And I said, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so I got her the resources that she needed, and we were able to get her on her feet, and this time she was able to get a job and get housing and be able to provide for herself. So that was huge. Give her a round of applause. She did everything that she needed to do to take care of her child. But she didn't stop there, and that is the line where poverty starts to end. She eventually went back to church. She met a really nice man. They got married, and they were able to form a family together. And now she is off of all forms of welfare completely. She's a God-fearing Christian, and she's able to now help in her own community. That's the difference between the story of socialism and the story of charity. And when each one of us can contribute as much as we can to help our neighbors, literally that's what it takes. If your neighbor's struggling, help them. And as a community, I think we do really good with that. But when it comes to people outside of our community, I think that's the arena that we can do more. And so when it comes to more programs, it's a little bit complicated than that, but that's a good start. And I'll be doing a project that I'll be releasing in July that I've been working on for my councilman, Sal DeCiccio, to talk more about it. But there's some key things that are conservative-based principles, conservative-based policies that will solve these problems for us much more than what we see today. Number one is reforming the criminal justice system. What I'm finding in my research is the criminal justice system is creating a revolving door between taking someone that might have been nonviolent, caught up and made some bad decisions. They then end up not being rehabilitated in the system, and they end up being released with nothing, no money, no skills, but they probably got some skills as to how to be a better criminal than they were before. So now they're homeless with the only skills they have are being more of a criminal. So they go back into the criminal system, and it's just this revolving cycle. And so that's something that I think that our policies can improve. The current system that we've had in place up until Trump did criminal justice reform, give a clap for that, that was huge. We had promises for years from presidents saying they were going to do criminal justice reform, and they did nothing. What did Obama do? Nothing, not criminal justice reform. And so prior to that, the Clintons brought us this horrible system that just created a public safety issue, that created more crime, and now we finally have a system that's making progress to end that. The next thing is reform education to give more control and choice to parents, break up the public school monopoly. I'd like to introduce you to Purple for Parents. They had a table back there, I think they're still there, back in that area. We are a group of committed parents for school choice. School choice fundamentally impacts ending poverty, because what it does is it allows those families that are in neighborhoods that are underserved to be able to take their children and bring them to schools that better serve their children for the greatest good, so that child can become the greatness they were meant to be. That gets kids out of poverty. Red for Ed is a movement that single-handedly will destroy opportunity for some of the poorest, most defenseless families in our communities, and that is why we must stand against their agenda. So if you are not a PC, make sure you become a PC, because this election is a fight for the life of our kids. It's the fight for a life so that parents have the ability to be able to reach beyond their current circumstances and to be able to succeed so that the next generation doesn't continue on in poverty like what we see today.
That's her choice.
The next step after that is to eliminate zoning and land use restrictions and reduce property taxes to lower the cost of housing and rents. We have a major crisis looming over our heads in Arizona with housing affordability, and that's something that if conservatives get involved in our local elections and our city elections, you can take back the Phoenix City Council. If you just get out and vote, if you just get involved in your city council meetings, show up. They're usually on Wednesdays, and the public gets to speak Wednesdays at 2:30. So show up and let your voice be heard as to what you want your community to do. And the last thing that I want to talk about is reducing taxes and regulations. This is something that Trump has been very strong on, but we need more of. So I will close with this. Taxation is theft. Please continue to stand for your community, stand for our principles as conservatives, because that is how we get people out of poverty, not with more socialism. That will lead to them being to starvation, and it will lead to the destruction of our country as we know it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Merissa.